Alright, hello, citizens of the Nigelverse. It's Nigel once again, and I wasn't sure if I was going to, but I ultimately decided on a compromise when it came to the Avatar The Last Airbender Netflix show. So it's something I had mentioned previously on the channel. Well, not just its premise and people's initial reaction to it, but then also some concerns that were raised. He's with the show, but I said, you know what? I'll at least watch the first episode. And I made myself a compromise. If I'm not hooked at least off the first episode, like if the first episode comes and goes and I don't want to continue watching, then that's a good stopgap. But if it piques my interest, it's then I'll continue going with it. And I just got finished watching the first episode only a few moments ago, and admittedly, the jury's still out. So I guess we'll talk about. I don't know if this is a full fledged review, but I do at least want to go over or kind of my initial reactions to the first episode and some of the things I think the show is doing well off the initial episode so far, and then some concerns I do have, and thankfully there is both. While I do have concerns, there are things that the show did hit pretty decently with, or okay with, admittedly, the kind of litmus test, like the test, like what I'm comparing the show to, at least this first episode, or if I continue watching, then the rest of the show, what I'm kind of comparing and contrasting it to in order to evaluate it and evaluate my feelings about it are not just obviously the original show, aka the source material, but then also the Last Airbender movie. So that's kind of what we'll be comparing and contrasting when it comes to that. I'll say this right off the bat: is it better than the movie? He's so far, absolutely. Is it better than the original show? Not really. But I think that latter part, it not being as good as the original show, was kind of expected and even kind of a given. But because like the original show, it's hard to hold a candle to it. But does this show even attempt to do so? Let's talk about it. So, right off the bat, and I guess as going into a bit of a plot summary, if you will. So this essentially follows was kind of where the first show started, not the first show, kind of where the original show started, and then a little bit before. So we do see Fire Lord Sozin and AK, the AK who I argue is the true main villain of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Go check out my discussion on that. I did that a while ago, but we do have Fire Lord Sozin here as he starts the 100 Years War and tries to take over, or essentially the entire world, that including the Earth Kingdom, the Water Tribe, and the Air Nomads. And then as the next Avatar, or aka the one person who stands in his way, a will be an airbender. All the air nomads are slaughtered essentially. Wow, for a show that's TV PG, it's pretty graphic. I don't know how you guys got that TV PG rating, but okay. But yeah. So they slaughter the air temple. Well, first the Southern Air Temple, but then also the Northern Air Temple. But the Northern Air Temple is off screen, or maybe flipping it. But nevertheless, as we see Aang, who is pretty much the Avatar, and he's told not just by the council. He isn't told directly by the council, but the council talks with it, including Monk Gyatso. That Aang has to start mastering the other three. The other three bending styles, that of course being water, earth, and fire. But Aang does kind of run away from his responsibilities. He goes to clear his head, and this is the way the show frames it. Hey, I'm talking in terms of how this show, the Netflix show, frames it. That Aang The Aang does try to he isn't like full on running away, but going sort of clear his head, but having every he intention of returning. But he and Appa do get swallowed up in the water or so. Aang creates the iceberg or slash force field will contain him and Appa, and that's where they will spend the next 100 years. Meanwhile, although the Airbenders or the Air Nomads tried to fight off the Fire Nation soldiers, they are unsuccessful. And they are taken out essentially. And again, for a TV PG show, it is pretty graphic. In fact, I gotta make sure the rating is right. I thought I saw TV PG, but yeah, there's no. It's pretty dark for like. It's not like overly like overly dark, but it's dark for TV PG. Yeah, yep. But it's saying TV PG, so I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm used to other PG and the joke that's made is that PG nowadays means practically G, but this is more in the realm of like that '90s PG. But nevertheless, 100 years later, Aang is still in the ice, but he's of course found by Katara and her brother Sokka. This time they're Katara and Sokka, not Katara and Sokka, but this time they're Katara and Sokka. Sokka is in charge of the Water Tribe, and we see that established, and they find Hank. He falls out of the iceberg. Or doesn't ask Katara to go penguin slaying this time around, but instead he's brought over, and then Grand explains that he is an airbender. She can tell by his arrow tattoos and everything. But he does eventually wake up, learns what happened to the air nomads, and of course to an extent the other civilizations such as the Earth Kingdom and the Water Tribes. He's pretty upset. And Zuko does show up. He follows the beacon of light. He follows that beacon of light that to finding Aang, which the beacon of light, and he is called Aang here, not Ong, but there is a beacon of light that shot up once Aang is freed from the iceberg, or so. Zuko follows him over there, and Sokka does try to fight him off. Initially, Sokka is kind of wary of Aang, especially after learning he is the Avatar. Sokka does get kind of mad at him, which, okay, hey, sure. Honestly, that is a little justified, but we'll get into it. We'll get into it, but because I am kind of getting ahead of myself here a little bit, but nevertheless, as Aang tries to stop the attack from the Fire Nation onto the Water Tribe. Here, he decides to go with them on the ship, but then decides to escape. He manages to escape, getting the keys and stuff. So he escapes. He's rescued by Sokka, Katara, and Appa. And so now they're going to be traveling. They do travel back to the Southern Air Temple, where Aang becomes upset and goes into his Avatar state. And again, I almost was I'm getting ahead of myself again here. This is kind of just more so a plot summary. I promise it's not a review, although it probably should be. I don't know, but nevertheless, Aang does go into his Avatar state at first, but then calms down and now knows what he has to do. And meanwhile, the search continues for Zuko, who is trying to capture the Avatar to restore his honor. So now that that's out of the way, at least for the first episode, what do I think the show is doing right, and what do I think the show is doing wrong, and how does it measure up to both? So where I think the show is going right is that, for starters, the effects a lot better than the movie. That's without a question, and that was kind of a given, and not even just because. Not even just because this is a whole 14 years after the last Airbender movie. Although it does help to an extent, but also, they do try to capture what makes bending so effective in the original show, where it feels a lot more natural. Like the earth bending does feel a lot more natural, doing a lot more motions, not like a whole bunch of hand motions like this, like in the Shyamalan cut of the last Airbender, but It feels a bit more natural, especially from the Fire Nation. They no longer need a source of fire to ban, and no, instead it comes right from them, and the effects do look pretty good. Same with not just the water effects. Obviously, Katara is a waterbender, but then also the air effects from Aang, as well as the other airbenders during their battle against the Fire Nation, showing like all the different air effects and stuff. Thankfully, it's not Shyamalan, so it does look a lot better on that front. On From here, they also do who kind of try to gel the characters together more. We see how Katara and Sokka and kind of develop their friendship off the bat. Katara takes does is a lot more warm to him. Sokka does warm up to him eventually, which is kind of sort of how it was in the show, although oh although it was a bit quicker to like warm up in the show. But we do see Sokka, which his sense of humor is back. Yay! From the sense of humor that was taken in Shyamalan's version, in aka The Last Airbender, his sense of humor is back. He is portrayed he definitely as like serious and a leader, but also he gets that like a comedic wit and stuff back that Sokka is definitely known for. So, good job in that regard. Heard I mentioned the effects. I mentioned the characters kind of gelling together. We see Aang having the tendencies of that young boy. He like a very childish, which he's still a kid. He's about I believe here he's about 9 years old, which I think he was about in the original show as well. But here he also is but here he also kind of realizes the responsibilities, but doesn't necessarily want to accept them. Which believe it or not, is kind of how kids are. You know, like hey, when you're a kid and you have a lot of responsibilities, sometimes it may take a little bit to come up to them, but you know you eventually have to. But you also feel for him as all this burden is cramped onto him because he is the Avatar, but he's still very young. Like even for an adult, sometimes this would be kind of difficult. Also, I think the show who does try their best to convey that, and we'll explore more of that when we get into what the show didn't do as well. But I think in that regard, what the show does is pretty good as well. We see Iroh, we see him being like that wisdom, that pillar of support for Zuko. And we kind of see it in his interaction with Aang, as well as Aang's talking with Iroh while he's in the jail. So we see Iroh trying to showcase that with his dumb and kind of hinting at without spoiling too much for the original show, we kind of see the hint that Iroh doesn't necessarily want Aang captured, and Aang even asks him, like when Iroh tries to explain why the Fire Nation's doing what they're doing, because that's what Aang asked him. Aang's like, "Do you really believe that?" And Iroh kind of dodges the question, saying he has to go. So, oh, we do kind of see that. And the reason I don't want to spoil it is because I do want you to check out the original show, and to an extent the Netflix show, in case you're curious. But we see that. We see Zuko being very headstrong, very brazen, wanting to capture the Avatar to restore his honor from his father, Fire Lord Ozai, which they also show here. Ozai's appearance was a lot more hidden in the original show. He's not full on in all the scenes like he is in the Last Airbender movie, but there is at least a painting of him. So I guess that kind of counts, but not really going overboard with it. They don't completely give away all of Ozai's appearance, and although you get a general idea of what he looks like. So kind of going the show's route in that regard. Right, so I think all of that is done fine. Like it does that pretty good, but for the most part. Like excuse me, it does justice is to an extent to the original show. But as I mentioned, and now we're gonna get into it, there are some concerns. First of all, there is a lot more tell, not show. It's not exp it's not exposition heavy like the movie, but I think a little too much is explained. It's explaining to Aang that everyone was wiped out, rather than Aang going out and finding for himself and being in that sense of denial before accepting everything that happened. And then and which of course each episode, it looks like each episode is going to be about an hour, so this one is about an hour and a minute and some change. And although mine is about 6 or so minutes for the credits, why are your credits 6 minutes? Um but yeah, so oh oh but I think it's a little too much tell, not show. oh uh they tell us a lot instead of having the characters or figure things out for themselves. It helps to where there is a decent amount of exposition. Like I said, it's not as bad as the movie, and the characters' emotions do get to show off more. But having all the exposition, all that just like dumped, like here's exposition, here's all the going on like I think some exposition is fine. I'm not totally against it. It kind of just to see where things are, but also having the characters explore that for themselves and find out for themselves. Like, hey, when you just tell us rather than show us, it takes the impact off of and that was something that the show did so well. Like, you felt the pain that Aang felt when he realized that the rest of the air nomads are dead, and that his entire civilization has been wiped out. You definitely feel for him, and you do to an extent in the show, but it's not as impactful, unfortunately. And I think that was a missed opportunity. The other thing is that at Sokka, he, like I said, he does have some of his comedic wit back, but they also do try to show that he is serious, is to an extent, because as he is in charge of the water tribe, he's in charge of his water tribe and everything. But I think I can see their intention, like intention trying to show both sides to Sokka, because Sokka does have those layers within the show, and it's what makes him an interesting character. Like, a lot of responsibility is thrust on him, but he also does use the humor. He's a comic relief, but it can also be implied that he uses that humor to mask his pain, mask what he's going through, which I think is what the show's trying to do. At least it's a Netflix show is trying to do, but it doesn't quite come out, I think, the way they intended it. And sadly, that does happen sometimes. But I can at least appreciate the intention. Like, the intention is definitely there, and it's admirable. It is very much admirable. But I think there's a little too much tell, not show. Like, you want to show everything. Like, literally, a grand and says, as literally the opening part, like the four or the four groups of benders, and then long ago, the world's in peace until the Fire Nation attack. Like, he says that, but yeah, so I do wish there was a little bit more or tell. Not a little more tell, a little bit more show rather than tell. But will they correct that later on in the series? I am kind of curious. Do I think I'll be checking out the rest of the series? I'm not, like I said, the jury's still out. I'm not entirely sure yet. Not a bad start, but those changes do, I think, need to be corrected. And I'm not like some people who want like a exact one for one of the show. Like it has to be exactly like this. It has to be exactly like this, and it has to do exactly like this, because that was how it is in the source material. They gotta do exactly like this, and they can't deviate from that at all. Oh, they did this. They gotta do this. They gotta do exactly this. Like, I'm not like that. Like, the thing is, I don't always mind changes, but justify the change. If you're going to make a change, and make it make sense, hence give a reason. Like, okay, you made the change from the original source material. Okay, how does this benefit the story that you're trying to tell now? If you can prove that this change was necessary to be made to benefit the story, then I think it'll work. An example I can kind of give is the adaptation of the story "The Indian in the Cupboard," which was a story I read in fourth grade, and we watched the movie as well. The Indian in the Cupboard, and I am going to look this up just to prove my point here, just to make sure. So in the original story, the Indian cupboard, or pretty much, the story was about this magical cupboard that brought toys to life, right? And the young boy brought his toy Indian to life, right? And you know, this was back then, so Indian obviously meant Native American. But then and he wants a wife. The Indian wants a wife. So in the book, the boy just does it. Like he brings the Indian woman to life, and then the main character has the wife. But in the film, that's not how it goes down. In the film, the Indian slash Native American actually stops the boy, say, no, don't bring her to life. Let her be free. So, and I think that more so was because the movie was kind of a one-off of like, it's a whole series of books, but the film is just a one-off if I'm not mistaken, and I do have to look it up as a case. Plus, the other issues that came up with bringing the toys to life and everything, and then plus the fact that it's a blockhouse with bomb, but which I just looked up, but so that change was made, but it is kind of justified, to an extent. It's justified, showing that, okay, all these problems came when bringing these toys to life. Hey, we probably shouldn't do that anymore. But in the book, because it's a series, and because to an extent it's probably better because the source material slash the reading usually is the books compared to the movies. That is it just goes ahead and happens. So with that regard, I don't know if I made any sense at all with that point, but I think it goes to show that sometimes changes aren't a bad thing. Like, if you're gonna make the change, justify the change, make the change make sense. Okay, you made the change, now how does it benefit the story you're trying to tell? How does it improve on the original? How does it make for a good adaptation if you make the changes? And admittedly, adaptations have kind of been hit or miss with that, and oftentimes the changes do hinder the story. He very rarely, I think, does it help the story that the change is made. But yeah, so that's what the show needs to do, like making the changes, such as not having the comet be in the next year, and that obviously because they're gonna film this. It's going to be filmed over the course of a while, so the characters are going to age up, so they definitely do want to combat that, and I think that's the main reason for that, and it does make sense. But having that change, or having Sokka not be as humorous, or Sokka leaving alive his sexism, which we'll see how that's explored, because the next episode is about the Kyoshi warriors within the show. So how will it justify, like, will the show be able to justify the changes? That's mainly what I'm looking for. But so far, off to a pretty decent start. So I may or may not continue the show. I'm not entirely sure yet, but so far, not a bad start. So we'll see where it goes from here. But and the other thing is at least Zuko's scar is, at least they attempted more of like a scar. It's still not as good as like the original show, but it's a lot better than what they did in the movie as well. But nevertheless, that is going to do it for this kind of review slash discussion video. Discussion? Ew, that was terrible. But so that's gonna do it kind of for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor: like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video, you see as soon as it drops, and let me know in the comments what your thoughts on if you've seen the Avatar: Last Airbender show on Netflix. Your thoughts, whether you watched the first episode or whether you've watched the whole thing by now. But please let me know what you guys think in the comments. And kind of the points I made, do you agree or disagree? Was I too harsh? Was I not harsh enough? Please let me know. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Peace.